Yeah, I got a couple notes here I just like to refer to occasionally. But you know, we never know when death will take us, and we never know where life will also take us. And 45 years ago, I never even heard of Sauk Prairie. And I just happened to end up here with my wife, and my 2 children. And we were probably kitty corner to Larry and Diane's house when they lived on Bolton Road. We were probably a couple acres apart. And because of an event that happened, which was kind of, I won't get into, it had to deal with bullets whizzing past Larry and Diane and going through their house and interior walls. We got to know the Zins family. And being from out of state and not having any family in state, Larry and Diane kind of adopted us as honorary members of their family. And over a period of years, we developed a relationship with not only their family, but they introduced us to a lot of their friends. Many of here are here today that we certainly know and have socialized with. But it was over this period of time that I got to really learn what kind of person Larry really was. And I saw that he was a very soft-spoken man. He wasn't, riches and fame and power and fortune really never meant a lot to him. He found happiness mainly with his family, being with his friends, being with his love of his life, Diane, and his 3 children. Great kids, by the way. And so we got to know Larry. We saw that he loved the outdoors, and whether it be out hunting or fishing or in the woods gathering wild asparagus or morel mushrooms or watercress, that's when he was the happiest. He loved, I don't think there was a tree he ever found that he didn't want to transplant in his backyard. To Diane's chagrin. He was almost like Al Gore on steroids, planting trees for carbon credits or something. You know, the man was amazing. So I got to know him that way, but what I saw, he was always there to help his friends, his family, and he was a man of few words, but he was a man he let his actions speak for him. You know, as he got sicker as time went on, and we saw him get worse before our eyes, I wondered, you know, the same old problem that men ask, you know, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people like that? You know, there's so many rotten people in the world that you think that should be they should have that, you know. But so one day, it hit me, you know. I saw Larry, and I said, you know, this man is a living example to me, and probably to all of us, on how to handle a situation if you're dealt a bad hand of cards. I mean, I never once heard Larry complain. I never heard him say, oh, woe is me, or feel sorry for himself. I never saw him act depressed. I mean, even when things weren't going well in his treatment, you know, whether it be surgical treatment or the medications he was on, how's it doing? You know, well, not as good as they hope, but, you know, let's try something else. And he was just never down. And that's the kind of man Larry was. And if there's any lesson he taught me, it was that, you know. But most of my time spent together with Larry was spent fishing with him. As a matter of fact, after the incident when we met, he would never come near me if I had a gun in my hand. He thought it was a weapon. But we fished all over, from Alaska to Canada to Lake Dubay to Door County to around here, and you know we always didn't catch fish, but we always had a good day fishing. And it was always an adventure to go out with Larry. I mean, something always happened with Larry. I'd like to share a couple of stories with you. The ones I can share, but anyway, one time we went to Canada, and a couple of people are here on that trip, And Larry had packed everything. I mean, he had 15 rods. He had 7 tackle boxes. He had every lure known to mankind. He gets up there and he unpacks. And here we find out, he found out, I forgot to pack my underwear. So, of course, we're in the middle of nowhere. You can't run to a Walmart or something and get some underwear. So Larry he washed his underwear out every night and hung his skivvies up from the bathroom rod and dried them up by the morning. They were fine. But what was the funniest thing about that, when we got home, I remember, he went to Diane, and Diane said, do you know you forgot your underwear? Yeah, I figured that out pretty quick. He said, well, what did you do? Well, he didn't, he had a straight face on her, and he didn't tell her he washed them every night. He said, well, don't worry about it. I changed underwear every day. One day I changed with Miles, one day I changed with Steve, one day I changed. Just with a straight face. That's the kind of guy Larry was. So, I remember that story. And then one time, Diane and Larry needed an appliance or something for their house. And they went to, I think it was Main Appliance. And when you bought an appliance, you got a romantic 2-night stay at the Cherry Hill Inn in Door County. I'll never forget that. And, well, we were going up fishing in Door County, Larry and I, for some brown trout. And Diane said, you know what, we probably won't use this. Why don't you guys stay at a nice place instead of a dive like you usually do for a couple of nice nights? I thought that sounded good. So we pulled into the Cherry Hill Inn. We followed Larry to the desk, and he goes to the desk. He says, hi, I'm Larry. This is Larry. We're here for the romantic weekend for 2. I'm sitting there, and okay, Larry, it's a little more. Why didn't you say it's Zinn's checking in? You know? No, Larry had to kick that in. So we got up to the room, and it was nice. There were chocolates on the bed and everything. We went down. They had a meal for us down in the restaurant there. It had a nice table in front of the fireplace with a candle lit. And we were sitting there. We had a good, but I was probably paranoid, but I just felt that people were looking at us and getting the whole, like if we were the only man place. There was always man-women there, you know. So anyway, that was another one of our great fishing excursions. We spent 20-some years with 2 other people who are here today, Bill and Tom Ault, going up on our yearly trip to Lake DuBay, which is halfway between Stevens Point and Wausau. And we have a lot of memories from that lake. And I suppose some of my fondest memories was probably the last year we went up there with Larry to Lake DuBay. And we used to troll a lot. And I used to drive the boat. Larry sat in the back. And Larry had this one technique, we called it the Zinn's technique, where he would take his pole, and as we were trolling, he'd pull the pole forward and then let it go back, and supposedly would speed up the lure, and then when it went back, the fish would attack. At least that was his theory. And he always did that, you know, so we thought, okay, and once in a while he even caught a fish doing that, which was amazing. But one year we were up to the last year, and Larry wasn't particularly doing good, and he couldn't hold his pole that day, or part of the day. So he put it in the rod holder, but he wasn't going to give up his technique. So he grabbed the line from the pole, and he was half sitting and half laying in the chair and hanging over the boat. He was propped up, but he had that line, and instead of pulling the pole, he kept pulling the line like this and letting it go. So we were driving all over the lake, and Lake DuBay has tons of party boats, pontoon boats, people out there barbecuing and drinking, and I hate them because they're always in my way and I'm driving. But anyway, we were going past these boats and they were all looking at it, and they saw Larry in the back going like this. They thought he was waving at him, you know, he's a friendly fisherman. So all these people in the boats waving at us, you know. Of course, I didn't want to be unfriendly, so I was driving the boat and I was going, yeah, whatever, and I waving back at him. Well, that was kind of an experience, but the last day of the trip, and we knew it was going to be Larry's last trip up to DuBay because it was just getting too hard for him to spend a whole week up there. He went fishing since then, but it was just shorter outages that we went on. But there was this one spot on Lake DuBay where we just used to catch some real big fish, walleyes particularly, and we used to call it Woods Point. And it was the last day, and Larry was not doing real good, and Larry would want to get out, no matter how bad he was feeling, he'd want to get out, you know, when it was dark, and he'd want to stay till it was dark. And we were on the lake, and it was getting late, And I said, well, Larry, we better wrap it up, I said. And he had his rod in a rod holder because he couldn't really hold it. And I was in the front of the boat and putting things together, and I said, well, come on, we catch a fish, Larry, because we're going to have to wrap it up. All of a sudden, I heard him causing a commotion in the back of the boat. And I turned around and looked, and here he was. And I looked, and his pole was just bent over backwards and was going doubled over, and he had a real nice fish. I said, wow, you know. So I ran to the back of the boat, sat him up a little upright in the seat, and I pulled the pole out, and I said, you think you can reel it in, Larry? Well, he grabbed the pole, and he reeled it in, and it was a great big nice fish right before we were about to leave. And I thought, wow, what a memory to go out on. I looked in the sky, and in my mind I said, thank you, Lord. Wow, what a thing. And we took pictures of it, and matter of fact, we had so many pictures from Lake Dubay. I made a little photo book for Larry, which probably most of you have seen because he liked to bring it out to show it to people when they came over, and he'd like to reminisce. But it was in the pictures of this Woods Point I was telling you about that Larry would talk about it, and he'd start to cry. And I'm sure some of it was sadness, but a lot of it I think was joy from some of the memories he had. The book was entitled Legends of Lake Dubay, you know, 4 of us. I think it was subtitled Women Love Us and Fish Fear Us or something like that. But, so that was the kind of guy Larry was, and that's, you know, we had so many good times together that I could write a book probably on the stories and stuff we did. But before I end this, I just like to do something. I beg your indulgence, because my son who's not able to be here wrote something, and he said, could you just say something about, or read a little bit? And I'm not going to read the whole thing, I'm going to paraphrase it. But he was, it's my youngest son, and Larry was almost like a second father to him. And so he wrote something, and I just like to share this before I end this up. And he said, some of my favorite memories of Larry happened early in my relationship with both Steve, who became my best friend, as well as his father. He said at the time Larry was working like crazy at the grocery store, trying to compete with the larger supermarkets that were coming in and hurting the small family-owned markets. And there were so many times that over the years Larry would come home exhausted, wanting nothing more than kick his feet up and relax and have a beer. But he can't remember one occasion that Larry, whatever Steve and Troy asked Larry to do, take them fishing, roller skating, to a friend's house, Larry would do it. But he said the one memory that he had, one time Larry took Steve and Troy fishing, and they were catching a number of these small little 3-inch sunfish. And being, you know, young crazy kids, they decided that skipping them back into the lake like stones would be a great experience, you know, for them. Who could do the most skips out of it? You know how you skip rocks. But anyway, at the end of the competition, or as the competition escalated, he decided to end the contest with one incredible toss. So he took his fish, putting every ounce of his strength into the massive throw. He kind of miscalculated the angle, and promptly there was a bluegill's dorsal fin stuck in Larry's butt. And he said that's one of the first times he met Larry, and he was prepared for a barrage of swear words or being chewed out. He says, because, you know, Larry he yelled pretty good, and he could see this thing still flopping in his rear end. But he said all he did was simply remove the fish from his aching backside and comforted me, you know, saying how bad I felt. He said, and that's when I knew he was a great man. He could be trusted and would do anything to help another person, no hesitation or anything. So that was his fondest memory of Larry, you know, just from a little kid on. So I like to say, I guess it's time to say goodbye. And there were a lot of things I wish I could have said to Larry while he was alive and tell him what he really meant to me. I never did, but I kind of feel and hope that he knew that. And you know, and although he's not physically with us anymore, and he's gone, he'll never be forgotten by me, and I'm sure most of us, all of us. So it was time, and the angels came down, took his hand, and took him into a better place where he's experiencing no physical pain, no physical limitations. can imagine the joy he's in, and I suppose each of us can imagine what he's doing right now and what he's saying. So I just want Larry to know that we're all going to be okay, because you know, we have his memories to get us through, and we can sense his presence, his spirit at future events. We know he'll be here with us in spirit. So Larry, I want to thank you for everything you did for me, for what you meant for me, and I hope someday to see you again. And I'm so glad I had you in my life. I love you, man.
Good job, Larry.